Next, next we can see about the determinants of demand. The demand for any commodity is depend upon so many factors. There are many factors such as price of the goods, prices of the substitute goods, prices of the complementary goods, income of the consumers, etc. Now we can see the factors one by one. The first factor is price of the goods. The demand for any commodity first depends upon its price. When the price rises, demand decreases. When the price falls, demand increases. Price of the substitute goods. The demand for any commodity not only depends upon its price, but also the prices of its substitute goods. For example, tea and coffee. Here, the demand of the tea depends upon the prices of the coffee. If the price of the coffee falls, the demand for coffee will rise following the law of demand. Since coffee is the substitute for tea, people will reduce the consumption of tea and increase the consumption of coffee, as coffee is now relatively cheaper than tea. So, when the price of a coffee falls, the demand for tea will also fall. The essence of this example is that demand for a commodity and the price of its substitute PS are directly related. Prices of the complementary goods. The demand of a commodity also depends upon the price of the complementary goods. For example, car and petrol. Here, demand for petrol depends upon the price of the car. If the price of a petrol rises, the demand for petrol will fall. Following the law of demand, since petrol is complementary to the car, people will reduce the demand for car along with the petrol. So when the price of the petrol rises, the demand for car will fall. This analysis indicates that the demand for a product RDN and the price of the commodity complementary to PC are inversely related. Next, we can see the income of the consumer. The income of the consumer also influences the demand for a commodity. When the income rises, people purchase the more quantity of goods. When the income falls, they purchase a less quantity of goods. Taste and preference of the consumer. The taste and preference of the consumer can also determine the demand for a commodity. When the taste are changed, the demand for goods also changed. Next one is population. When the population is increased, the demand for goods also increased. When the population decreases, the demand also decreases. Next one is climate. The climatic conditions can also influence the demand. In hot climate conditions, cool drinks are demanded. In rainy season, umbrellas are demanded. Next, we can see the types of demand. There are three types of demand, such as price demand, income demand, and cross demand. Now, we can see about the price demand. Price demand explains the relationship between price of a commodity and demand for that commodity. There is an inverse relationship between price and commodity. So, the price demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. Next one is income demand. Income demand explains the functional relationship between income of a consumer and demand for goods. Generally, if the level of income rises, the consumer purchases more of goods. If the level of income decreases, the purchase less quantity of goods. It means that there is a direct relationship between income of consumer and demand of goods. So normally the income demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. Next one is cross demand. It shows the relationship between the price of one commodity and demand for another commodity. It shows me the demand for one commodity not only depend upon its price but also prices of its substitute goods and complementary goods. The cross demand curve has two types. It is upward from left to right in case of substitute goods and slope downwards from left to right in case of complementary goods, substitute goods. If one good is used to place of other good to satisfy the same want, they are called substitute goods. For example, tea and coffee, complementary goods. If two or more goods are usually jointly to satisfy the single one, they are called complementary goods. For example, milk, sugar, tea powder, etc. are complementary for tea. Cement, bricks, iron are complementary for construction work. So in this case of complementary, there is an inverse relationship between price of one commodity and demand for another commodity.